I will start with a short introduction of myself. For those who don't know me, my name is Markus Auly. I'm head of scientific affairs for the company Belimed in Switzerland. Switzerland, Zug, in the center of Switzerland, is the headquarters of Belimed. We're a company who delivers disinfection, reprocessing solutions for medical devices. Generally, everything that has to do with surgical instruments, endoscopes, and also beds. Today, the topic is beds. We also have a distribution or a company, Belimed UK, here in the UK. They are very present in reprocessing of medical devices in the central sterilization department and are very present at those congresses. Here in the case of beds, we are working with OSKA, which is a bed distribution company here in the UK. Because it makes much more sense if you want to talk about bed reprocessing solutions to also work with bed companies. So I'm here on the behalf and invited also by OSKA. They are supposed to have a booth, but unfortunately for health reasons, the person who was responsible for this booth could not come. And this is why you will not find them up there. But I'm here, I'm available, and I'm very, very happy to answer any questions also personally after the presentation. So my background is biotechnology. I'm a biotech engineer focusing on reprocessing of medical devices for about 15 years now. I've also been in the UV business before, doing UV disinfection, which is very interesting. I was 10 years too early, it seems, in that business, because now it's spreading. When I go to the industry hall here, I can see that there are many companies. And I've also made a master in business where I focused on behavioral aspects of infection control topics, where I read a paper about the compliance of doctors disinfecting their hands or not disinfecting their hands. So also there is a lot of interesting flesh on the bone for me on this congress. Normally, I'm much on congresses about medical device reprocessing, but here I really appreciate that it's a very general infection control congress that has a wider view. So let's jump into the topic. You can ask questions at any time. If it takes too long, then I will ask to answer them in the end. I will just go through. Presentation will be around 30 minutes, and then we should have 5 to 10 minutes to do Q&A with everyone. And if you then have any questions, don't hesitate to just come to me after the show or later. So the agenda, we will talk about infection control considerations first. Why can it even make sense to have an automated bed reprocessing? Of course, everybody reprocesses their beds. 99% in the world, or 95% in the world, is manual reprocessing. So you take some manual appliances and it's wiped and it's sprayed and it's cleaned, and that's the way it is done. Centrally sometimes, or decentrally in the ward itself, or even in the room itself. Good. And the contrast to that would be centralized automated bed reprocessing. And in the first part, we will talk about, okay, what are the differences of those two conceptually from the perspective of quality management. How can you say that one might be better than the other, and why? And then in the second part, we will really concentrate on what solutions are there. How does it work in practice? Yeah? Good. Let's start with the first one. Okay, you know that a bed typically will not be as dirty as shown in this picture here, but we know that there are many invisible dangers and threats possible on a bed. We can have multi-resistant germs. We can have all kinds of different pathogens in higher or lower quantities. And of course, you want to get rid of those, and you want to make sure that visible and invisible threats on a bed are gone, and that every patient in your facility gets a clean and safe bed. A term that is important in that context is, of course, high-touch surfaces. Beds are, by definition, when you look at what are high-touch surfaces, you will always find beds, because everybody goes there, everybody touches it. The patient, of course, touches it, but also the nurses, the doctors, the visitors, everybody will touch the bed. So it's a very nice example of a high-touch surface where the germs of everybody's hands will unite and celebrate a nice party if you let them. And When you look at the literature, of course, the recommendation is always to control high-touch surfaces as much as possible if you want to control the spread of multi-resistant germs in the hospital. Some examples here. In the context of COVID-19, of course, the attention drawn to surface disinfection was much higher. We can see here an example from a Canadian recommendation that says high-touch surfaces. The COVID-19 virus is most likely to be on surfaces you frequently touch with your hands, so also putting this emphasis on cleaning and having a good system to control the contamination of high-touch surfaces for COVID avoidance or COVID control. Now we know, of course, that 99% or most COVID cases are transmitted airborne, but still, for us in this business, it also helps us to raise awareness and to also get funding sometimes for things that previously it was very difficult to make funding, even if they made a lot of sense. So, what is the case for automated bed reprocessing? When you look at medical devices, how are medical devices reprocessed? In some countries, manually. But in most developed countries, they are reprocessed automatically. And why is that done with washer disinfectors? Because it is generally considered a gold standard. It is generally considered to be safer, more repeatable than if you would just do it manually. You can have a validated process. You can have engineers checking this process, making sure that it is always the same. And you have some kind of a quality control with an automated process, that you don't have that easily with a manual process. Every patient, of course, has the right to be treated with a clean and safe device or a clean and safe bed, you can say. Standards for design and validation of washer disinfectors are available when you look at medical devices. The same is true also for bed. I will talk about this a little bit later. Beds with their high-touch surfaces are relevant for infection control and patient safety in a similar way as other medical devices that are routinely contaminated with washer disinfectors. And as a natural consequence, countries or developed health systems have taken this analogy and have said, okay, if we are reprocessing medical devices automatically with a quality assured process, why shouldn't we do the same thing for beds? And especially in the Netherlands, there's a very systematic approach for that. Scandinavian countries, also in Germany, it has been identified as a gold standard there, and they try whenever they make a new hospital to already consider this in their design. There are specific ISO standards for that, for bed reprocessing. This has not existed for a very long time. Of course, first they concentrated on sterilization, then they concentrated on washing, disinfecting. When we knew that, for example, CJD cannot be inactivated in a steam sterilizer, then they concentrated more on cleaning. But first on medical devices, of course, on high-risk medical devices. And then when they were through with all that, they said, okay, now maybe we should also standardize big item washers or bed washers. This is why this standard came a little bit later, but it is from 2016, so it has been around already for 6 years now. I also participate in the standard committee for washer disinfectors for the 1583 standard series, so I know very well where this comes from and what's the background, if you have any questions. This defines technical processes and test requirements for washer disinfectors for non-critical thermal labile medical devices, including hospital beds. There you can see, for example, how such a bed washer should be tested or how such a bed washing process should be tested. You can see you have drawings that show you where on the headboard, where on the footboard, where on the rails you should put your biological indicators to test if the disinfection process really works there. Cleaning and disinfection process really works there. This is not a routine test for every cycle, of course, but this is something for the type testing. This is what it looks like. You will have a metal sheet bar with blood or a mix of blood and other proteinic dirts with bacteria. So you will have 10 to the 5, 100,000 bacteria on these surfaces. And then this is how it looked in the case of our type test in the factory, where you will stick those indicator plates on the surfaces, and you can verify that really on those surfaces you have a disinfection, a removal of dirt, and a disinfection of at least 5 orders of magnitude for this bacteria. Same is true not only for beds, but you can have the same thing for bedside tables, for surgical tables, for transport carts. So it is a flexible technology. Mostly you will separate beds and bedside tables, maybe surgical tables, but the transport cars are more an application for the CSSDs, for the central sterilization units, where you have the transport carts for medical devices. So this is rarely done in the same facility. But it is the same kind of appliances, the same kind of machines that can be used for that. So how can a build-up look of bioburden on hospital beds? And what is the difference if you now do it automatically or if you do it manually? Let's look how it would look after every patient. So here would be the 5th patient. And you can say, okay, every time when it's cleaned manually, you will remove something and it will be cleaned, but you cannot expect it to be cleaned perfectly. So you can expect that with time, over 5 patients, 10 patients, 15 patients, you will have a tendency to have a certain buildup. This is, of course, not quantitatively what I show here. It's a qualitative graph just to show the idea. And how does this look different if you have an automated process that is validated and with which you can really rely that it's cleaned from all sides, from top, from bottom, from sides in a validated process. This would be the average for 15 patients. If you're lucky, you're in the beginning. If you're unlucky, you're in the end. And your bed maybe not that clean anymore. If you have automated reprocessing after every 5 cycles or every 5 patients, then it would look like that. That after 5, you go down basically to 0. Then you build up again, and then you go down to 0 again, and so on. This is a practice that is chosen sometimes, that you don't do the automated reprocessing after every single patient, but you do it after 3 patients, after 5 patients, depending on the capacity that you have. If you have 1,000 beds, but just 1 bed washer, it will be difficult to do it after every patient. But it's better to do it after 5 patients, after 3 patients, or after 10 patients at least, than to never do it. Okay, so the average for every patient would already be much better. So I would already prefer to go to that hospital. Ideal, of course, is when you can do something like that, an automated bed reprocessing after every patient, and then the average bioburden, the average residual dirt that you will have on your beds is much better. So this first example is a non-validated manual cleaning. Second example is a validated washer disinfector cleaning after every 5th patient. And the last one is a validated washer disinfector after each patient. Okay, so this is a little bit the infection control considerations focusing on the patient. Another very important focus that is also very important to me and dear to me is, of course, also the employees, because bed reprocessing is a very tough work. It's also not a very healthy work because you need to bend over and you need to do all kinds of unergonomic things. And mostly it's not very well paid either. So it means that people are doing a very hard job, a very tough job for maybe not a very good pay. And at the same time, they have a huge responsibility because if they don't pay high attention to it, they may have compromised the quality for the next patients. So it can be a win-win situation for the patient and for the employees. If the employees can do something that is more centered to the patient, then he will protect his health and will at the same time also protect the health of the patients. Good. Now let's look at the approaches. Let's look at the time. Okay, we should be good. So how does it work? You have a big washer that is big enough to house a bed frame where you can put a bed frame in. And you have washable beds. Very important. Not all beds in the world are washable. And it has been like a co-development. Somebody came up with this idea and said, okay, let's have a bed washer, and you need washable beds, and then the processes and the beds influence each other. There's a big trend in beds also to have a lot of automation, a lot of electronic development like GPS and smart beds that know when the patient has fallen out and things like that. And of course, you always have to make sure that this does not compromise the washability of a bed, that it doesn't go to get broken. Because if you have a hygienic bed but it's broken, it's also not good. It needs to be co-developed, or the manufacturer of the bed needs to focus also on the reprocessability. And this has become more and more a requirement. So how does the process work? You have a loading. A person will push the bed in. It doesn't necessarily need to be a person. It can also be an automated loading, where you have some kind of automatism that will pull the bed in, but somebody needs to bring it there, of course, first. Decontamination phase. Some beds, like this here, have a special washing position. You push a button, and then they will kind of go into a position where they are easier to be cleaned, and where the water also rinses off more easily. If it's flat, then of course all the water stays there. It's difficult to dry it. If it is like that, then the water will drop off more easily. So first is decontamination. This is cleaning and disinfection at the same time in one step. Then you have post-rinse, because of course you also need to rinse off the chemicals for cleaning and for disinfection, because they're harmful for the bacteria, but they're also not that healthy for humans. So you need to rinse it away. And this is done in that third step, and then comes drying. In drying, you will suck out all the steam that is still there and make sure that the bed is reasonably dry. It does not come out completely dry. You need to give it 10 minutes or so. It is warm, and you need to give it 10 minutes on the air where it can dry. But then after 10 minutes, it is generally reasonably dry, depending a little bit on the design of the bed. Some plastics, as you know, it's from your dishwasher at home. Some plastics dry more difficultly than metals, and so it depends a little bit on the design of the bed. How long does this take? Less than 10 minutes, typically. So it means all 10 minutes you can push in a new bed and have this cleaning process and get a clean bed out on the other side. This is how the logistics would work in a typical Dutch or Scandinavian hospital. Now let's look at the differences between complete bed reprocessing, only bed frame reprocessing, and mattress reprocessing, because this is an important topic. I talked about the necessity to have cleanable machine washable beds. The same is true also for the mattresses, of course. And you can have all cases. You can have washable mattresses, not washable mattresses. You can have washable bed frames and not washable bed frames. Yeah? And depending on what your setup is, you can also have different solutions for that. So these are the typical ones. You have a non-washable bed completely. What are your options then? You have to do the mattress manually, and you have to do also the bed frame manually. That's, of course, not the desirable solution. If you have a washable bed frame, then you can use a big chamber washer for the bed frames, but the mattress is still done manually, typically. But there's one other option also, and this is steam disinfection of the mattresses, because many mattresses don't support or don't bear chemical cleaning, but they may, it may be possible to clean them just with hot steam. So you also have devices that are like a big sterilization chamber, but they don't sterilize at 134 degrees, but they just disinfect at about 90 or 100 degrees. And you leave them in and, with steam for some minutes, and then you know that you have reasonably disinfected mattresses. And the best solution, of course, is when both is machine washable, and then you can have a washer where you can, in the same cycle, put in the bed frame and the mattress. And this is what is really like the state of the art, what the Dutch are focusing a lot on. They want to have the bed mattress and the bed frame at the same time in the same cycle, because then you have a 10-minute cycle and both is through, and they always stay together. Bed and mattress stay together. You don't need the different logistics for it. It's easier to handle. And I will show some examples now of each of those three. First example is a small relatively small private hospital in Germany with 120 beds. Orthopedic surgery, internal medicine, they have a turnover of about 30 beds a day, and they would do all those 30 machine reprocessed, but only the bed frames. The bed frames are machine reprocessed. The mattresses are not machine washable, so they are done manually, and they do it after every patient. This was the green line down here, so quite a good solution. How does the infrastructure look like? A little bit old-fashioned design on the sides with those tiles, but they have this bed washer, and here they have like a hole where you can push the manually disinfected mattress through, and so also both stay together. You just put the mattress on the bed again on the other side, and you have a clear separation between clean and unclean also. This was the first example. Second one is a bigger one, also in Germany, Fürth, close to Nuremberg, a big hospital with 770 beds, 100 bed turnover per day, and 50 machine reprocessed. This means that they don't do it after every patient, but they do it only after every third patient, because they don't have the capacity to do it after every patient. They would need to have a capacity of 150 beds per day, but they cannot manage that, so they do just 50 a day and do it after every 3 patients. And they also have the disinfection for mattresses, steam disinfection for mattresses. This is what the infrastructure looks: 2 bed washing machines next to each other. Each one does 25 beds a day, and then you have the disinfection device for mattresses. Third and fourth example are 2 hospitals in the Netherlands. One is in Amsterdam, the other one in Nijmegen. Bigger hospitals, they have also about 631, and the other has 800 beds. General hospitals with many specializations. They have a turnover of 120 and 140 beds per day. And every patient, and they actually do the reprocessing after every patient, and not only after every patient, but also after 1 week. So if a patient stays for 3 weeks, for example, they will get a new bed after 1 week and another new bed after 2 weeks. Automatically reprocessed. So this is the highest standard among these examples, case studies that I showed here today. And they have this machine where you actually can put in the bed frame and at the same time the mattress, and they go through together. I have a little video that I can show how this looks in practice. Now we will look at those 3 different approaches. One is manual and machine. The other one is disinfection, steam disinfection and a machine for bed frames. And the other one is the totally automatized bed frame and mattress together. So this would be bed reprocessing centralized but manually. So the beds come into a special room, and there a gentleman or 2 gentlemen are doing the tough work of doing this, reprocessing these beds. And here we made a little comparison how it looks when you do it manually on the left side and how it looks when you do it automated on the right-hand side. On the right-hand side you have the machine. On the left-hand side you can see how they're starting to open everything to grant even access for the manual cleaning. On the right-hand side he pushes the start button, and here you can see how 2 guys are working on this bed. To be honest, they are very, very thorough, so they are not everybody in the world cleans a bed like that, of course, but this is the way it ideally should be done. And then when they are still cleaning here, on the other hand, on the other side, the bed has already come out and is already being prepared for the next patient. So this is the typical setup for only the bed frame cleaning. And this would be the automated cleaning, including the mattress. And here we'll show a little video. I'll pass by to the other side. So here you can see that the mattress can be pushed with manual aid over there. It can also be automated. Then you have an automatism that will position the mattress in the right way so it goes through the washer. And here you have something like a cleaning machine for cars. I don't know how you call it in English. This car wash, exactly. It's a little bit like a car wash where you go in with your bed and with your mattress on the right-hand side. And you see that the mattress is also, the bed is also tilted to make sure that it is more easily, the water can drop off more easily. Then process was, of course, much accelerated. It will take around 7 to 10 minutes. And then on the other side, the mattress is pushed again on the bed, and bed can go out. Ready? Excuse me. Okay, so this is how the Dutch like it. We've actually developed it for them. They asked, can you do also something that does the mattresses at the same time? And we did it for 1 or 2 hospitals, a few of these machines, and then all the other hospitals also wanted it. So it became a new quasi-standard there. Okay, so to wrap it up, high-touch surfaces in hospital environments, such as bed rails, are a reservoir for germs, as we know. Automated bed reprocessing is standardized and can be validated. It is less dependent on the human factor and delivers more reliable results. Automated reprocessing after each patient is preferable, but also if done only after a certain number of patients, like 3 patients or 5 patients, it reduces the average germ load that every patient will get on his bed. Today, machine washable beds and mattresses are available. And depending on the availability of machine washable bed frames and mattresses, 3 different approaches of automated or semi-automated bed reprocessing were presented. And with that, I thank you for your attention